Joe, thanks for hopping on, man.
Yeah. Good to see you, man.
Obviously, we got to start with the girl dad shirts because when you jumped on, you had the girl dad shirt, and that was like one of the first things that we connected on is just being a girl dad and having that be a big priority. So, basically, like I mentioned, our goal for today is just to hear a little bit about your story in starting coaching, in the hopes that it could help somebody who's listening. So, could you take me back to kind of what it was like when you were first getting started and what was it like and what were you trying to get out of coaching at the very beginning?
Yeah, I'd made a decision. Let me back up. So I through a friend, had been following the 29 community pretty closely, and actually was at an event that they were participating in, watching, seeing what it is. I kind of watched them train and getting ready for it, and then you start seeing and hearing the stories of what's happening live on the mountain in front of you in that 36-hour period, or you start hearing about the lives of the people and stuff. So that was kind of like a big eye-opening thing for me. It's like, I've never done anything like that in my life. I've never done anything hard like that in my life. And obviously through the 29 community and mutual follows and all those things, came across your account, started following you, seeing the stuff that you were posting. You had been a part of 29, you'd been a volunteer. But it was also you talking about like the mindset stuff and kind of getting into that. And I think you and I connected when I commented on one of your videos or one of your reels or something, and
Yeah.
then connected and started communicating that way. And that's when we started getting engaged. And so what I came to you with, and why I wanted to look for a coach, specifically two things. One, I'd made the decision I wanted to do 29. I wanted to have that big goal, check it off my list. I knew from previous experience that my mindset would always stop me before I could get there.
Yeah.
I would find every reason to not do it. And most of the time there was never like a physical limitation to the reason. It was always this isn't my thing. Why am I doing this? There was always something that kind of shut me off in my mind. And so much so that I had developed this thing that I can't do hard things. That was actually a chosen, very specific language that I used. And so for me, the coaching was twofold. I looked to you for coaching around getting ready for an endurance event and
Mm-hmm.
thinking about those things. And there's a whole lot of stuff that I don't know and didn't know. But for me, I think you and I spent the majority of the time overcoming my mindset. And, then it became about, the endurance training aspect of it was just more of teaching the habits that go along with it, answering the questions, how to set and regiment what your training schedule is going to look like and everything else. So that made it easy for me to just have something to follow, which was great. But it was really the work and the conversations and the coaching around how do I get past this mental block that I have that I actually can do hard things. And here's the proof. I've actually done hard things. You made me actually list out what's the hardest thing you've ever been through. Break that down for me. What made it so hard? How did you get through it? Where are you now because of it? Looking at all those different things really kind of helped me say, okay, I can do hard things.
Yeah.
I thought about it,
And,
right?
and I just still remember that call where you kind of really made that breakthrough because that's where a lot of people are right now when they're thinking about like a big goal. If it's something professionally, something in your business, there's like a mental block a lot of times that I can't break through this or I'm not that type of person. And you had that belief that like I can't do hard things or every time it gets hard, I give up. So
Yeah.
how specifically did we overcome that? How did you overcome that block?
A lot, you broke it down pretty easily for me because the first thing that we did was like, write down what is the block? What are the characteristics of that block? Where did it come from? Can you point back to an experience? I absolutely, I had the list, right? I never finished this. I had a list of all the things that I hadn't done. Then you turned it around on me and said, okay, now write down all the hard things you have done. And it's interesting. It's amazing how you kind of start to see a bigger list than you realize, almost, right? More times than not. And then you start reading some of the books and things that you suggested, and you start to realize that this is really just a voice, and it's kind of tied to a lot of it is tied to your own psychology, trying to protect yourself from getting hurt or
Yep.
from feeling defeated. But yet it's making you feel defeated so you don't go become more defeated. If that makes sense. It's a
Yeah.
really weird kind of
Yeah,
twisted.
it's trying to protect you. It's like that inner voice of some of the times in the past where things have gotten hard and you haven't maybe followed through the way that you want. And
Mhm.
so that's a way to try and protect you from that. And that's where you can either listen to the inner critic or the inner coach. And I think shifting that positive self-talk was like really big for you. Because I remember like your number one goal was to build the positive, confident mindset, which carries over into every part of your life.
Mhm.
So besides like the books and that exercise, is there anything else from the coaching process that you feel like has made a big difference for you, either in terms of an exercise, just other potential benefits that you've gained?
You know, one of the things, and this is going to sound strange, but the one of the things that stuck out most. So remember at the very beginning, so we're going to start small. We're going to train for something. Let's train for
Yeah.
a 5K. You
Yeah.
know, it's like, okay, 5K is easy. It's 3.2 miles. We're going to work up to it. We went through all these different training exercises, right? And then
Yeah.
I did my first 5K like in that December. I was so excited about it. It was like, look, I actually did it. I did a 5K. And we move on. All right. So now we're going to start training for the next piece. We're going to do a 10K, right? We're going to start training for that. And like 2 weeks after, or 3 weeks after maybe running the 5K, right? I'm looking at the training plan. I'm going through the training plan and I realized, wait a minute, I'm doing like 3 5Ks a week now. It was this breakdown. It was, oh, so this thing that I had to like mentally convince myself to do now becomes a habit. Now becomes a regular occurrence. I've just like blown past that. Right? When you start to see it that way, that was the thing that my mind couldn't do. 5K was an accomplishment. The next giant mountain I had to hit was a 10K, right? I'm like, no. And it's like, even as we were getting ready and kind of towards the end of the coaching and getting ready for 29029 and having the conversations like, it's 30 miles and, there's a ton of elevation, but you've got to walk 30 miles. Remembering that I had, gone back and walked like 38 miles in 12 hours. And I can do this thing. Mentally, make the realization that mentally I can do these things, and it becomes really amazing. And then the other thing I think too, right as I was getting ready to go run the 10K is when my ankle went, right?
Yep.
And that would have been something that previous versions of me would have said, "See, I'm
I'm
just not
done.
built for this. I can't do it." Instead, it was more of okay, what are my options? What can I do? Doctor says, do 8 weeks of physical therapy. Let's see if that helps. Great. 8 weeks of physical therapy, 3 days a week, plus exercises at home, plus all this other stuff. No. Okay. How about surgery? Sure. So it's May. We do surgery in May, and I'm off my foot for 10 days. Finally get it off. Back into physical therapy again. When can I start training? When can I start doing that again? And it was just kind of trying to get built back up, right? And it was never once did I say, this is going to stop. I got to keep going. It was
Yeah.
never I'm 150 days away, or, I had surgery like a week before the 20-day plan started. And we timed it out so that we knew that I would be able to pick up here in the training program and just continue on from there. And I was able to finish the 20-week training program right in time to lead up to it. And the only thing that, made it to Whistler, was excited, ready to go. And I just climbed. And I didn't get my red hat, but what I did walk away with was I did this. Even though everything else had happened, I still pushed. I gave it all I could. I was stopped physically by my body.
And a couple of
And
things a couple of things there that I want to point out, because like the first thing that you realized is you started to really measure backwards and focus on the process rather than like the end result, like
yeah,
the 5K or the 10K. You started to realize, oh, this thing that I used to think was like a really hard thing, I'm now consistently able to do that. And then in doing that process, you overcame the belief that you can't do hard things and you were able to just become a lot more resilient with
mhm,
whatever came your way. And that was the thing that really stood out to me is how much more resilient you are now compared to the old version of you that probably would just give up when something got hard. Right? Is that kind of
yeah,
like one of your bigger things? I just remember how resilient you were through every adversity, every challenge that came your way.
yeah. It was just the ankle thing and the ankle surgery. It would have been real easy. I could have just checked it. It never crossed my mind to reach out to base camp 29029 and say, hey guys, this is what's happening. I'm not going to go. Instead, it was more of a, this happened, here's where I'm at, and I'm going to go. I'll see you at Whistler. By the way, I'll see you at Jackson. I'll be volunteering too. It's like on the way. And so it was never going to be a stop. And that was the thing. I think that I don't know that I appreciated it at first. I appreciated it after the fact the most, because I just didn't stop. And
Talk to me about that now, because one of the big things is you feel like you overcame the belief that you can't do hard things. You've built that positive, confident mindset. You're a lot more resilient with adversity. So how has that changed your perspective on, I don't know, work or life, or has that carried over into other areas?
it's there's since then, there's been some really interesting, we've had some really big changes, like in my work, my company. There have been really big changes. There were big challenges around. We're a rapidly growing organization, dynamics changing in the organization. We're trying to be a big company now, behave like a big company and do all the things.
Yeah.
And that I see people on my team really struggle with this. They see it as a really adverse situation. They see it as a really, how are we going to get through this? We're in the middle of releasing a major new facelift for our entire platform, and it's daunting. And it's how do you learn all the changes? How do you get through all this? And it's like, guys, break it down into little pieces. Let's start a week at a time. Let's focus here. Let's do this. You know, you eat an elephant one bite at a time. I think I've even heard you say that to me once, right?
Yeah.
And so it's taking everybody to have a moment just to sit back, relax, let's have a good laugh about something for a minute. Now, let's do this. Step two, let's do this. Even for me personally, the things that I've wanted in my career, things that I've wanted to change, it's taken time, it's taken perseverance, but I'm finally starting to realize those, and that's very exciting for me.
Yeah.
Uh, Growth of my organization, growth of my team, growth of my expanded responsibilities, which is exciting. And it lets me have a whole different conversation when I'm talking to my daughters too. Vivian, my youngest, as you know, got to see 29029 firsthand.
So
She
cool.
and she met so many of the people, and she heard all the stories. She loves Cowbell Rob. I mean, she
I mean,
is
who doesn't?
probably his number one fan. And she came out of that and not just saying, wow, I want to, yeah. She's, yeah, we can go volunteer again. Hey, she's like, no, I want to do this. I want to do this with you, right? And she is sticking by that. She's picking hard things that she knows she wants to try. She puts herself out there. Theater programs, not just at her school theater, but she's like going into like community theaters and trying out stuff there.
Wow.
She's going to try wrestling. She wants to try wrestling, and her new high school has a girls wrestling team. And she's like, all in. What do I need to do to get ready for this? Let's just break it down. Let's talk to the coaches. Let's see what they say. What do you need to start doing now to get ready for next fall, next winter? And so I can have those same conversations with my daughters and share that same kind of thing. Like, the stress level has come off of me because I'm not sitting there thinking about everything that potentially is going to go wrong. I'm thinking about, oh, there's positive outcome here. How do we get there? Yeah, there's going to be roadblocks. Yeah, there's going to be things that get in the way. There's nothing we can't overcome around those. And so, and training for events or personal training, personal, all those things that I can apply those same mindsets across all of them. And that's probably been the biggest benefit I've gotten out of this, all told.
It's amazing because you have the mindset that you can do anything. I can do hard things, and you know the process of how to work through that. And I think the thing that I think is so cool is that your daughter watched you go through this adversity and more adversity, keep going, and she's inspired by it, and she's starting to imitate that as well. And that's like, at the end of the day, that's what we want to do for our kids, is like give them the tools of resilience and help them go after whatever it is that they want. So I think that's so cool. And so, I mean, you've talked a lot about how you've changed as a person. Could you describe, is there anything else that you would describe about kind of what you were like before versus what you're like now?
I'm more positive now, definitely that. And actually, and even so much so that both of my daughters have noted that. They're like, you're very different now. And my team at work has noticed that too. That they don't see me reacting in a blunt force trauma fashion, that I'll actually, stop and I think through like what I'm going to say, how I'm going to respond. And usually the responses are, hey, this sucks, but this is what we can do to get around this and how we can move forward. And there's
Wow.
always a way to get through that. And so people have seen that and commented on that. My daughters have told me that it's a lot easier to bring me problems.
Oh, wow.
And even to the point that like I was in a conversation with my oldest daughter, and if she listens to this, I'm going to laugh. But the other day, she was participating in protests, right? And she says, yeah, and if I'd gotten arrested, I would have called you. Because I said, why? Because I know how to use a bail system. She's like, no. She goes, I think you would handle this much better than mom would.
Hey, there you
You know,
go.
and so
That's
yeah,
seriously so cool that your team has noticed the transformation, your daughters have, and that changes your relationships with them. That is so cool to hear.
yeah,
Honestly, like, I'm so happy for you and so proud of you. It's been awesome working with you. And just kind of like last question is any advice for someone who's thinking about it, thinking about getting started, or was kind of like in your shoes at the beginning? Any advice for them?
literally stop thinking about it. Just start the process. If you don't know how to start the process, Google it. Find a coach like Mario who can help you start the process. But the main thing is to stop thinking about it, because the more you think about it, the more you're going to find reasons not to do it. So get out of your own head. It's your own worst enemy. If you need inspiration, if you need hope, you want to see stories of hope, follow the 29-0-29 community if you're not already. All of those stories are out there. And some of the most beautiful stories that are out there on that are the people who didn't finish or who didn't get the red hats. They
Yeah.
learned the most from the experience in a lot of instances. And some of those create some of the most beautiful stories. Yeah, stop thinking about it.
I think that's so true because like when you're thinking about it, that's when you do become your own worst enemy and you think, well, what could go wrong and what if this happens and what if that happens? But I just wanted to say thank you and congratulations on everything that you've accomplished. You've become your team and your daughters recognize you've just become more resilient, more positive, more confident, and I'm just grateful for you and grateful to work with you. And so, if anybody else is listening to this and they're like on the fence and they're inspired, reach out to me. Send me a DM on Instagram or send me an email, and we'll start the process as well. So,
Hey man, I owe a lot to you, and I really appreciate my time working with you. Was amazing. You even dealt with all the craziness that can be my schedule and everything else, but you were always there when I needed you. Girl dad, we got it.
girl dads, there we
All right,
go.
man.
You're the man. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Mario.